ideal 90-foot right-of-way as envisioned in the city plan. So we will be dedicating about 10,000 square feet of land that belongs to this site. The proposed building will be a 7-story building under the 90-foot height limit range. There will be a lobby entry here, about across from where First Terrace, I believe, is across the street. And there will be a service drive on site, but it will be open to public use, which will access to parking on the ground floor, and also with maybe some access to future development for future phases. First phase will be only residential. Here is the ground floor of the proposed building, lobby, residential around L Street and North Capitol. There will be townhouse-style units on the first 2 floors, so it will be 4-bedroom units. Secured parking here. The alley, which goes through the existing properties, will remain in use and be untouched. On the second floor, there will be 2 courtyards. One will be more active with on-site amenities. Both courtyards will face south to receive natural light and good views. As you go up the building, you'll see this is a typical floor and roof plan. We'll have a mixture of green roof and some other features. And in general, the floor plan itself is laid out so that the common elements are centralized, and there will be larger units on the corners, and there will be quite a mixture of units between small percentage of studios, very small, but mostly 1s, 2s, 3s.
And even
4s on the ground.
Townhouses also.
Here are some examples of the different unit types. This is an example of one of the 4-bedroom unit typologies. Here's a section of the building. As you can see, there's the parking on the ground floor, and then the 6 levels above with the courtyards. And we've done this before with MRP. When MRP does affordable housing development, especially over this program, they really just treat it like a market rate building. This is how they envision the interiors of the units, very similar to the other finishes we have on our other projects. And these are some of the conceptual elevations of the building. One thing we felt was very important is to re-engage the streetscape. That's a very important characteristic of creating a vibrant community. So all these townhouses here will be lining both North Capitol and L. Also, because of the long facade, we do envision breaking it and demarcating the importance of the corner of North Capitol and L, and then also creating a moment where we can have a recognizable stop for the entry of the building. That's really all we have. We're about midway, about 50% through our construction documentation of the project. We've had 2 community meetings, and we'll have other participation in green building, charrette, things like that.
Yes, we are, as Dennis said, 50% done with the design, and we plan to break ground in the first quarter of 2020. We will continue to have community outreach and community engagement. We'll be working with Commissioner Rogers and Councilmember Allen's office, in addition to Lynn represents many of the former Temple Court residents. We plan to attend the Temple Court homecoming on September 14th to get feedback, continue to get feedback from former residents. So again, we just want to come and give an update on where we are with the project and answer any questions that anybody might have.
This is apartments.
Your apartments. We have a program to be apartments. There'll be 221 total units in the first phase, and about 150 of those will be affordable units.
Can you PDF this to me? Because I think some of my, even though it's not my area, that my constituents would be interested.
Sure, absolutely. I'll make sure you get it. I'll send it to everybody. Yes.
Of those 150, how many of those will be set aside for seniors?
We don't have a specific amount set aside for seniors, but there will be some units that would be senior housing, but there's no, percentage of the units that would be specifically for seniors. I believe there will be some that will be required to be supportive housing because we will be getting DHCD funding for some of the affordable, but there's no, right now, we don't have a specific number for senior housing.
So if you're gonna meet federal regulation on ADA, you don't know what your number is?
Well, we will definitely, the units will be ADA compliant as they're required to be, but that's not necessarily because they're for seniors, they would just be ADA compliant.
Well, yeah, I mean, I know ADA can be under the laws from 18 on up,
Mhm.
but you don't know your number set for
We don't
those units?
have, right now, we don't have a specific number for senior housing, for units that would be set aside for seniors. This is not a senior housing
I
project.
know that.
Okay.
So of those 150 that I just said, out of that 150, you're not sure how many would be set aside to be ADA. Put it that way.
For ADA, the DC law, I believe, is 15%.
They're not
That's
specifically for
I
seniors.
believe it'd also be 50% of the 221, right, not just the.
Correct, yeah, so it's fully compliant with any accessibility regulations in the city.
For ADA, but not specifically.
And on
for
top of that,
seniors.
since it is receiving city funding, it also has to follow UFAS, which is the Uniform Federal Accessibility Standards.
Does that answer your question?
Sort of, yes and no.
All right, well, please follow up with us.
So do you have a website, just in case someone wants to?
We're working on, MRP is working on getting a website at the moment so that we can have information in real time.
So I guess a future meeting, you can come and share the information with us.
We're going to try to have something set up by September 15th.
So I'm trying to remember, have you set aside any opportunity zones for public arts in the complex, or how are you going to incorporate public art?
We have it for phase one because it's the smaller phase, but for phases 2 and 3, we plan to have, we're thinking some type of art competition or to get community involvement in the art that would be programmed for the site.
But you've chosen locations, or you haven't specified where?
Right now, we've just focused on phase 1, and again, it's the smaller of the 2 sites, or the 3 phases. And so we're looking for phases 2 and 3, which are much larger projects. Phase 2, I believe, is 350 units, so there'll be a lot more opportunity for green space and public art space. We've already thought about having that, some type of art competition.
And then landscaping was the other question. So
But thanks.
it's looking like there's not a lot of green here.
Well, actually, there will be a lot of good opportunities. So we're working with Bradley Site Design. They're on the team. They're pretty well known. They've done some DC projects and community centers in the city. Even though we are dedicating back land to create the 90-foot right-of-way, we've had meetings with DDOT talking about what that right-of-way will entail and establish the distances from the face of the building to the new curb. And so there will be substantial room for treatment zone with real trees, sidewalks, and then there will be a green buffer approximately about 15, 16 feet, I believe, from the inside of the sidewalk to the face of the building. There will be quite a lot of green opportunity on the site, all around, from North Capitol down L Street, and then even within the service alley that we're providing, because the service alley we're providing is actually a little over 30 feet. Yeah, this, if you wanted to look closer, we do have the proposed landscape design from Bradley overlaid on this plan. It's just grayed out. But there are buffers between this project and the neighboring project, and then also between the driving lane here and the building itself, so all around, and then 2 elevated courtyards, which would be very green.
If you could share those zones not grayed out in some of the PDX list.
We just, do we have any other questions with the commission? Sorry, yeah, please go ahead.
Has there been, right now, the trajectory of development has been pretty spotty in that area, I would say, as far as 4th Street over.
It seems a bit sporadic, and I was wondering, and maybe that's because all these parcels of land are owned by different people, but is there any entity that's maybe bringing all of these forces together to try and create some commonality or thoughtfulness as to how these are being developed, that there isn't redundance or?
Yeah, that's a good question. So there is on this project in particular, because every street or right away has two sides of the street. So we are talking with the development, Toll Brothers, who's doing source and corridor across the street. So as we engage with the different DC agencies, Office of Planning, DDOT, they're encouraging us to talk to the developers, and we're also aware of what's going on in the middle of the bid, and what's going to happen with First Terrace up here. This is getting realigned. Is that going to come through? We're having those conversations. So it's not really in a vacuum, but it's not necessarily being made public because certain decisions have to be made out of those meetings. So
Yeah, for example, we have a joint meeting with the developer across the street next week too.
And
Come
which,
up.
across the street, which?
Search and Forest.
L Street up here.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes, there's a joint meeting between both developers to come up with a kind of one game plan together to make sure it makes sense. Our question is, second plan, designing the building.
Not to that level necessarily, but.
So
you know,
this is,
For the roads,
this is
yes.
Sursum Quarter here, it's been demolished and we're coordinating with Toll Brothers. who's the
Yeah, this was
developer.
a planned unit development here.
Okay.
So they went through the stage one.
Yeah, two DCHA adjacent properties. One several thousand townhouses and one's on First Street right next to the property.
To date, we haven't engaged them, but we would definitely, I know we had a recommendation of a list of other community stakeholders that we should reach out to, and we will definitely reach out to them. We met with Mount Airy Baptist Church, because obviously their, front doors on L Street, they're definitely impacted. And so we met with them, and they'll be included in the discussions about how L Street gets redeveloped.
And we have a working list now of different community stakeholders we want to keep in contact with, so if you want to
Yeah.
use your system. Okay, perfect, yeah.
Yes.
Yes, if you engage a share bike around the dock, you're kind of in a bit of a share bike desert there, including the one that was removed from this rec center. Because there's not a share bike on, looking on North Capitol from H Street to R Street. There's not one.
We have not, but that's a great idea, so
And we
we
used
can
to
take
have
notes.
one here, but it's been moved because of the work they're gonna do here on New Jersey. So I think it's real important to, I think that brings a lot of movement of pedestrians and people coming. They've been very important in the 7th Street corridor.
it's a great idea, we'll definitely follow.
Dovetailing off that question, since you are meeting with DDOT, I ride a bike through there quite frequently. And what I'm noticing now, since Source Florida has been back, it's supposed to be a one-way out, if I'm remembering correctly.
It is
It's
one way
do not-
going east.
Okay, it's one, I'm getting bullied by trucks who are trying to pull off of North Capitol on L, like to make a right
So
turn.
legal right turn.
Yeah,
going down one.
yeah. And,
Police officers.
but if you're meeting with DDOT and you're gonna be really involved there, I mean, it's something to consider now. I don't
Well,
know why
it will be a two-way street when it's rebuilt.
it will be.
Yeah.
It's just not set up for that now, and.
No, and
you're
if you can see, it actually, L Street was originally, it used to go through here. Yeah. And so over the years, it was narrowed, and so we're gonna realign it, and
Yeah.
it will be widened.
And then while
L
you're
Street's
working on it,
pretty
is that gonna be
complicated.
closed off? That alley, will that be closed off?
L Street, while we're
The-
under
the-
construction.
Yeah,
runs
this
up
one-way
next to-
alley, is it gonna be?
Here?
All the way to North Capitol, is that gonna be blocked by your
During-
construction?
No, only to the extent when it's being reconstructed.
Yeah,
So
It's gonna be repaved.
well, when it's repaved and
Oh,
widened,
okay.
when we're working with Toll and DDOT
So it'll
for that plan.
to like right here.
but
Yeah,
while
but
you're.
she's asking during,
Yeah.
we're
No,
not,
not
we're
the-
not using it like for staging
Okay.
area, it would just only when we're reconstruction.
Okay.
Reconstructing it would
Okay,
be to be reconstructed.
right,
Like
alright.
Rock Creek
I
Park.
wasn't planning on bringing that up, but, you know, since you guys are talking about that.
Jenny, what
The
was the
widening-
intersection?
North Capitol and L, it's kind of an alley, and,
It's actually a public street.
yeah, but
It's
they're
hard to
wanting,
tell
but,
that,
I mean, it's public, but they're
It-
going
it-
the wrong way on it.
It feels
and
like
they're-
a one-way, so,
It says do not enter one
And
way,
they're still,
and they're still trying to,
Okay.
pulling it out of their way, and there's no room to do that.
widening L Street to the full 90-foot envision right-of-way is pretty complicated
Uh-huh.
because there's several different, landowners.
Yeah.
So, this project here, they intentionally built their building back so that ultimately, when every other parcel comes
You
online,
can build yours.
it will go through, but there will be phased and interim conditions.
Okay,
But at least, because Northwest One is talking with Source and Water and the development there, this stretch happens from here to here is going to happen all at once.
So the street will be realigned again, so it will go straight
There will
across,
be-
because right now it doesn't.
yeah,
There
right now
will be
it's kind
some,
of a jagged.
there will be some temporary striping and things
Okay.
like that done until this gets completely opened up again. But,
Thank
do
you.
we, let me, sorry, Alex, let me do one behind you because you've been waiting patiently.
Oh, no, you mentioned that there were units reserved for Temple Court residents coming back. How many are those again?
It's 211 total over the 3 phases, and in phase 1, there's 65 units.
My name's Alex Lopez. I'm chair of the transportation committee for the ANC here. And as far as I know, we haven't been reached out to regarding the L Street realignment. That's something that our committee and the ANC would be very interested in providing input to what that looks like, especially given the current traffic conditions and potential realignment of some of the other streets in this area and the new units coming in.
We'll get your contact
Who's
information.
the DDOT rep leading this effort?
we've been working with Jonathan Rogers.
John Rogers.
So we're working with Bowler, is our civil engineer, and Grove Slade, they're doing the traffic, and they're working on both projects, so I don't know if you've talked to them before about the support when they were going through the PD, but
Is there a going to the line of Wall Street and that blocks and all that? Is that the fact that you have to match that?
yeah, it will. So the face of the proposed building will align with this building, which is in the right position. This is the 90-foot right-of-way. That is the ultimate condition.
Is that the DCJ?
No, that's.
This is NPR.
NPR.
I forget.
I'm asking about across
Oh, this is North Capitol.
On the east side of North Capitol? Yes, it will align, it'll be the same width
across.
across,
Yeah,
yes.
the buildings across North Capitol are in the correct position, and the road is the 90-foot.
So that's your guy.
Yeah, that's the guy. So it's coming through. This has already been sort of improved halfway as an interim condition, and then ours will. You can see it here. It will align with that building. And this will.
Well, thank you guys so much. If the commission doesn't have any other questions, I'd like to move on to our next exciting item.
Thank you.
Thank you guys so much for
We'll
coming.
get you the information.
Yeah. All right, so we got next up, okay, this is the 7-Eleven voluntary agreement. With regard to the commission, as you guys know, we've been talking about this for a while now. I pieced together a voluntary agreement. This is a draft. We've been kicking back and forth with the 7-Eleven attorneys. This is the current form right now. I can quickly go through the 8 terms and to see what you guys think, if we should make any additions, any changes. So first,
Wait, did you add my mention or no?
yes.
You did?
Yeah, in fact, I changed it entirely. Yeah.
We didn't resent.
No. No. Well, I knew we were coming here. We have a nice open discussion about it.
Yay.
Anyway, so like all the other establishments in the vicinity, we're going to be having them shut down the Sidewalk Cafe at 11 p.m. The hours of the cafe will go from 6:30 a.m. to 11 p.m. every day of the week. At 11 p.m., they will remove the tables and chairs or have them chained up such that they can't be utilized by patrons or passerbyers. There will be no amplified music or speakers on the outdoor enclosed sidewalk cafe. There will be no entertainment on the cafe. Deliveries will not be accepted prior to 7 a.m. Trash and litter. The proprietor shall take all necessary precautions to ensure litter and trash is not left outside the premises or in the public space surrounding the premises. Now, I took out the loitering and put in harassment. So this is just kind of
So
some
let
draft
me give them
language.
some background. So I
Sure.
called Alex today, because as anyone who's been through the last 4 meetings, we have talked about this 7-Eleven. So I did my point, and I was the only one who supported the tables and chairs out in front of the 7-Eleven, was that if you are a homeless person, a young black man, I don't care who you are, if you buy a Coca-Cola Slurpee, you have a right to sit in front of that 7-Eleven. I do not want to hear about people being, oh, we don't want, I was sent emails, we don't want those people. I don't know who those people are, but if you buy something from 7-Eleven, you have an absolute right to sit in front of that store. So I asked
Well,
Alex to-
I think, getting back there were some uncomfortable emails that were sent to the commission.
Oh,
That the
And-
you
commission,
sparked my interest in this now because that's discriminatory. So right now, you don't spark my interest, and I'm not happy at all. But
well,
I'm here.
you'll be
I
happy
talked about it
to
a lot,
know that
Eric.
those were certainly not taken into consideration. The biggest concern with 7-Eleven certainly wasn't the patrons that might go there, but the 7-Eleven not taking care of the facility as some franchise 7-Elevens have done throughout the city. That was by far the biggest concern. Another concern that the neighborhood raised was in that particular area outside of that liquor store, there tended to be groups of people that were reportedly harassing people going by. There was young women, groups. That was one of the issues that we're looking to address. Their concern is that having a place outside for people to come congregate, and quite frankly, it doesn't make a difference to me whether they are patrons or not. That's up to 7-Eleven. Anybody can sit there. What the clause that we have in this agreement is that the proprietor shall take immediate action to contact DCMPD if any person on the premises is found to have harassed any other individual on or near the premises. Now, certainly that's not exactly what I would call a strong toothed clause, but it's looking to get to the spirit of what we're trying to prevent here. Everybody should feel comfortable walking up and down K Street. Nobody should feel like they need to be harassed. Certainly I'll take, if anybody wants to change some of the wording.
I think that's good, but I don't think that really relates to what we're talking to. So, my concern was that,
Why is that in there?
so,
I mean, that's standard law,
So, Aaron.
period.
A lot of this stuff is.
Yeah.
So why is that in there?
Because a lot of this is
From the
kind of hoping
conversation.
that 7-Eleven complies with what they're coming to tell us. I mean, so a lot of this is just things that are,
So I don't know if you can put something in there, legalese ways, about how, that the patrons themselves also not be harassed.
well, yeah, anybody
I
on
don't
the
know, but I don't know how
premises.
you can
Yeah,
say
no, we
that
don't need to worry
in
about,
a-
we don't need to worry about
That if
whether
I'm a
they're
homeless
shopping or
man
not.
sitting there having my Coca-Cola Slurpee, no one is gonna go up and go, what's he doing there?
Well, yeah, nothing in this agreement would
Okay, but
do
I don't,
that.
but that's kind of like, that was kind of the sentiment from all those conversations.
Again, those were limited. The neighborhood I represent certainly doesn't hold those opinions.
There's some people that
No,
will
they-
think that.
There are negative people throughout the city, all right? There's negative people in my neighborhood, there's negative people in yours. There is no discrimination, we would never tolerate anything like that. We wouldn't tolerate it from 7-Eleven operators, we won't tolerate it from people going there. This is simply meant to address the concerns, not necessarily even involving 7-Eleven, but what has gone on in that corner in the past. And by 7-Eleven taking over this place and taking over public space, they are taking ownership of some of these problems, and this is memorialization of their intent to be a good neighbor, to address concerns that are being raised by the neighbors that have legitimate concerns. Not discriminatory concerns, legitimate concerns, which I feel like this agreement does, and I feel like a lot of the discussion that we had at these meetings showed. I mean, I wasn't at the first one, but, you know,
I mean, can you add something like, or am I just not really, is it really not?
I think you should take it out, period.
So Aaron, hold on. So is that?
well, I'm not gonna do that. We're gonna have something
No,
in there
his
that
is fine,
says
his is fine. It's
you're not
fine
allowed to
say-
harass people. I mean, that was
I
a
mean, that's
specific
standard.
request.
That-
A lot,
Street,
again, a lot of this
M
stuff is
Street,
standard.
14th Street, I don't care. Whatever street you walk down, you can't be harassed.
You can go to the safety without not having harassed.
That needs to be removed.
So I actually see a conflict between some of the statements that Rochelle has made and some of the provisions that you're proposing, because I envision this to be seating for 7-Eleven patrons only. So that's how you control some of the negative,
And that's why I brought it up this afternoon.
aspects. So because, Rochelle, made the point, if you purchase a Slurpee, you've got a right to be there. If you're just walking down the street and you decide to sit there, you don't have a right to sit there unless you are a customer of that 7-Eleven.
So can you put in
Well,
something
first off,
customers only?
well, no, and let me tell you why I don't want to have that in here. Is because one, this is an agreement between the 7-Eleven and us. Right? If they want to allow somebody to sit there on their property and not purchase anything, just sit there and read a book or do whatever they want to do. I mean, that's up to 7-Eleven. The only thing that I'm representing, and the only issue that I have, and I want 7-Eleven to be aware of, which is why it's in here, is that there have been occasions where people have felt harassed going by that area. Now, that's the only thing I'm looking for. I'm not trying to tell 7-Eleven how to run their business. They want to have people sitting out there minding their business, not buying anything. Far be it for me to get in the way. I just don't want trash, and I just don't want people sitting there harassing
But
people
I
or
think
consuming
that,
alcohol.
Rochelle's angle actually helps to address that, because if someone is a customer of the 7-Eleven, I think they're much less likely to be engaging in harassing, behavior than someone who just decides to loiter in that seating.
Again, I mean, this is their property, their seating. And the other thing I don't want to set up and try to push 7-Eleven is for a Starbucks situation. Where somebody's just sitting there and then suddenly it's like, hey, what are you doing here? Buy something or get the hell out of here. I mean, that's up to the people that run 7-Eleven, I mean, I understand the spirit of what we're trying to get to. But I think just kind of getting at the behavior and specifically saying, we don't want harassment, you can't harass other people, you sit here, do what you want. It's up to 7-Eleven. 7-Eleven wants to start kicking people off their patio. That's fine. I just don't want this to be the agreement that forces them to do that.
So what did their lawyers say about what you had, what was their feedback, or have they even seen this yet?
They have seen it. They're comfortable with it. I think the one thing they wanted in there was that they wanted it to change if they ever applied to a liquor license. So I had this clause in there saying if there's any major change, the ANC will, take up and, contemplate altering this agreement by majority vote. But listen, I'm one of 7 here, and one of 6 here. If you guys want to do that, that's on you. I really think it's best to target the behavior that we're trying to prevent, not try to tell 7-Eleven what to do with their people that come on the property.
You walk in a very dangerous line. We have
So,
behavior.
hold on, I'm speaking, hold on.
You got this
So,
far.
I would like something similar to what I said, I just don't know how to phrase it in a legal document. I don't know if you can add that, I know you don't want to, but that was the whole purpose why it took so long for those months of talking about it, that was the issue. It was never about a table on the chair.
Right, but I mean, the reason that people have listen, if people in my neighborhood have a hard time with a homeless person sitting there minding his own business, not buying anything, that's on 7-Eleven. Don't go by there. 7-Eleven shouldn't be allowed to allow somebody to sit in their chair, whether they bought anything or not. Having an agreement that says no 7-Eleven, you can't, unless this person's buying something, you can't let them sit on your patio. I think that's a dangerous
Isn't
road.
that sometimes you don't say for patrons only?
Again, if
Bathrooms, usually every business in the city as some kind of a notice that says, bathrooms are for patrons only.
Or seating for
I would,
patrons
I
only.
would say that the seating, would apply as well. I mean, if you have an outdoor cafe and you're a restaurant anywhere else on K Street, on the other side, of Fifth Street, you're not gonna allow folks to just sit in your outdoor seating and listen to customers.
I understand, and I agree with you, but again, I just don't think it's our role to try to dictate that to 7-Eleven. I also don't think 7-Eleven is like these other establishments, especially on K Street, where they just have open seating out front. I mean, it's a convenience store that's trying to, create this atmosphere in which not only is it a convenience store, but it's also a place you can get food and sit down and relax. And I just don't think that demanding that they kick people off, the cafe because they're not buying anything is our role.
Yeah, but I can't sit in front of Alta Strada and not, that's an open area.
Right.
Oh, yes, you can.
But there's nothing, but there's nothing,
Then I'm sitting there for hours.
but in our agreement with Alta Strada, we don't have anything in there that says you must only serve patrons. We just simply say, hey, you gotta shut this down by 11 o'clock. We don't tell them who can sit there and who can't.
I've witnessed them coming out and saying, I'm sorry, you can't sit here in this room.
And Alta
They-
Strada.
Right, but I'm just saying the agreement that we
And
have
I agree
signed
with you.
doesn't have anything in
You
it.
don't have to say that, because they're doing it.
If they're, if they do it, but again, like, I just don't like the idea of a business, of us telling a business, one, they have to kick people off that aren't buying. And two, I think it's not a problem. If people want to sit on the corner, whether it's, at 7-Eleven or wherever, as long as it's not bothering anybody, I don't have an issue.
See, I think it comes back down to the fact that the reason that we're having so much, distress about this 7-Eleven outdoor seating in the first place is because 7-Eleven is usually a bad actor. And the more we can prescribe, what is and is not going to be allowed there, the more likely we are to model the behavior that we're hoping is going to be demonstrated.
I agree.
But I think having something that says, no loitering, only patrons it's too over-inclusive.
I don't think you do loitering at all. I think you say the patio is for patrons.
Right, but I mean, the problem isn't somebody who wants to just sit at a table and mind their own business. That's not the problem. The problem in the past in that area has been, people that are sitting there having a few cocktails in them and want to shout a few things at ladies walking by. That's the problem. And I think having this in there puts it on 7-Eleven, where if they see that, they have to call MPD and they have to respond. I think